Welcome back to Left, labor education for today. A lot has happened in the last week, so let's jump into our first story in this week's weekly recap. We need to start off by continuing our coverage of UPS, where negotiations over the largest single contract in the country are continuing to heat up alongside the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Where we last left off, the Teamsters had responded to the company's first economic counterproposal from June 22nd, saying that they would refuse to meet with UPS until UPS produced a more respectable economic proposal. And I actually found this to be a pretty risky strategy by the Teamsters right off the bat, because I think it does create the perception that the Teamsters are not bargaining in good faith. I don't think you have to make a lot of movement so early in the economic component of negotiations, but you do need to do something. And so on Tuesday, June 27th, the Teamsters did go back to the table with UPS, despite UPS not having produced an additional economic proposal. And on this day, you can see here a tweet from Teamster General President Sean O'Brien lamenting that too much time has been wasted waiting around for a fair deal. Remember that UPS's first economic counterproposal came just a week prior, less than a week prior, on June 22nd. So the Teamsters are quickly applying a lot of urgency around getting a deal done before the July 31st expiration of their contract. The next day, on June 28th, the Teamsters demanded a last best and final offer from the UPS negotiators. Again, very early in the process, considering a week had not passed by since the initial economic counterproposal. And so you can see this reflected in UPS's company statement on their website, where they said, "Reaching consensus requires time and serious detailed discussion, but it also requires give and take from both sides. We're working around the clock to reach an agreement that strengthens our industry-leading pay and benefits ahead of the current contract's expiration on August 1st. We remain at the table ready to negotiate." And after all of that negotiations posturing, after only a few days since the initiation of economic negotiations, the Teamsters began practice picketing. They made frequent reference to the initiation of a strike on their social media pages. UPS maintained their optimism that a deal could get done, but it wasn't looking very good for both parties. But they did resume negotiations on June 30th. Again, that was the date that the Teamsters had provided as the deadline for a last best and final offer from UPS. And I'll let you take a listen to what Teamster President Sean O'Brien said about the movement on June 30th in a press conference that he gave on July 1st.
This past week, UPS wasn't moving quick enough. They weren't moving quick enough, so we put a demand. We demanded a last best final offer. And that last best final offer usually is taken to our membership for a vote. UPS came back to the table knowing we were serious, made some movement, so we made a commitment to resume negotiations. And UPS, ball is in their court. We have to come to an agreement by July 5th in order to get that thing ratified by the expiration date.
Also, an interesting and hard to miss component of this press conference was the repeated reference to the impact of the Teamsters negotiations with UPS on the rest of the labor movement across the country, and that includes non-union workers like those who work for Amazon.
We have the opportunity, because of the courage and conviction of our rank and file members that go to work every single day, to set the tone and set the standard high for labor, not just the Teamsters, but the entire labor movement. They need to reward their people, and we are not going to stop till we get the contract that we deserve for our 340,000 members. And we're going to use this contract to help change the lives of people that are in this industry non-union, just like Amazon workers right now go to work unprotected, no benefits, no wage increases, no path to a full-time career. We're going to take this contract and say, this is what you're going to get when you join the Teamsters Union.
Since the press conference, the two parties have agreed to return to the bargaining table. So over this weekend, as I'm recording and editing this video, additional developments continue to be made between the parties as they attempt to reach a tentative agreement prior to July 5th, which is when the Teamsters insist that a final agreement must be in place on all terms and conditions for this collective bargaining agreement in order for them to be able to take that agreement to their members for a vote so that a contract could be ratified before the expiration date on July 31st. So that is part of the reason why the Teamsters have approached this component of negotiations with so much urgency, is because they do need time to bring a final proposal to their members in order to get it ratified before the contract expiration date, because the Teamsters have made exceedingly clear that they will not be extending this contract, as would be customary for many different types of collective bargaining agreements, especially for an agreement of this nature, one that has proceeded so quickly since the beginning of the master contract negotiations just back in April of this year. To negotiate such a significant contract in such a short period of time is quite an accomplishment, and it's something that the Teamsters are committed to in order to leverage the power of the strike that they have been threatening over the last few months. And so if they can reach that agreement by July 5th, then that's a very promising sign for both parties. It seems like both parties are continuing to work hard this weekend, and so I will keep you posted on any additional developments. In our second story of the week, we see a slightly different strategy being taken by the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Radio and Television Artists. Although the Teamsters made it clear that they would not agree to a contract extension with UPS, the Screen Actors Guild did agree to a contract extension this week for their contract that was set to expire on June 30th. Still, it was only a short extension that takes the contract out now to July 12th. And similarly to the Teamsters, the Screen Actors Guild and the working actors that comprise that union have already voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike authorization. And so the union has said that they agreed to this contract extension, quote, in order to exhaust every opportunity to achieve the righteous contract we all demand and deserve. No one should mistake this extension for weakness. So this contract does represent about 160,000 screen actors, stunt performers, broadcast journalists, announcers, and hosts. And it mirrors some of the developments that we've seen from the Writers Guild of America, whose 11,500 members have been on strike for the last 2 months. Like the Writers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild is also very concerned about the implications of artificial intelligence on their industry, among other concerns shared by the actors, including the pay implications of this great migration toward streaming content, as well as the recent growing trend for actors to need to produce their own audition tapes, the costs for which used to be borne by casting and productions. The last time the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild were both on strike simultaneously was back in 1960. The two groups today are exhibiting significant solidarity, which you see most recently through a red carpet interview with the stars of the new Indiana Jones movie, Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Take a look.
Would you go on strike if that happens on Friday?
I believe in unions. I believe in labor. I believe in representation. All of those things. If my union votes to go out, I'll go out. Thank you.
Well, I'm striking in solidarity with the WGA and with the writers as well, and I'm on the edge of my seat, like hoping that the SAG will follow suit and stand up in support of the writers, and just really hope we can get this sorted.
Progress with the Writers Guild of America has certainly stalled. There's been no talks of resuming negotiations since the writers have gone on strike 2 months ago. Progress with the Screen Actors Guild has been much more promising, with that extension again being intended for the parties to reach an agreement by July 12th. Obviously, the implications of writers and actors both potentially being in labor strife could have significant ramifications on the entertainment industry, including the streaming services that so many companies are moving toward at a rapid pace. Our third and final story of the week involves the pilots over at Southwest Airlines. The last time we saw a major U.S. passenger airline strike was with Spirit Airlines back in 2010. But Southwest pilots are indicating a move in that exact direction after the National Mediation Board has failed to bring the two parties closer together to an agreement after 3 years of collective bargaining negotiations. Back in May, the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association announced the results of a strike authorization vote, which showed 98% participation in the vote, as well as 99% support for strike authorization. This week, the union representing Southwest Airlines pilots announced that they had sought a release from the National Mediation Board from federal mediation for a new labor agreement with Southwest Airlines, citing that negotiations had stalled with the company on a number of important topics, including pay, benefits, retirement, and scheduling. Under the Railway Labor Act, the National Mediation Board would need to review the union's request for release from mediation in order to determine whether or not additional conversations between the parties would be productive in reaching their contract negotiations agreement goals. And if the answer from the board is no, then they would allow a 30-day cooling off period, after which Southwest Airlines pilots would be legally permitted to engage in that work stoppage. Meanwhile, leadership over at Southwest Airlines does not feel like the two parties have reached an impasse and does not feel that the release from mediation is justified at this time, stating, "We've continued meeting regularly with SWAPA and, in fact, made an industry-leading compensation proposal and scheduling adjustments to address workplace quality of life issues for our pilots. We feel confident that mediation will continue driving us even closer to a final agreement that will benefit both our pilots and Southwest Airlines." In just the last 2 weeks, we've discussed major labor developments from workers in all different industries, including retail, technology, transportation, logistics, and entertainment, which suggests that in 2023, there are not many industries exempt from the throes of organized labor. So if you're interested in following along with these key updates from the world of work in 2023, please do subscribe to Labor Education for Today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.